Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my 2023 BookTube Prize Octafinals TBR video. So excited! Happy February! So anyway, the BookTube Prize was created by booktuber Robert at Barter Hordes. The intention is to have the literary bookternet community judge the best in U.S. published English language fiction and nonfiction from the year before. So the titles we are considering this year were all published in 2022. And so we start with these long lists in fiction and nonfiction, starting with the Octafinals round of 48 books per division. And then through the next several months, we will be whittling down the lists to two winners in fiction and nonfiction. We being the judges of the literary bookternet who signed up to do this crazy task. There's about 270 of us, I believe, from 40 countries. This is my fourth year as an official judge and a fifth year for the prize overall. I'll link to the website down below. Also, on the 1st of February, that's when the official season starts with the Octafinals round, where there are 8 different ballots in fiction and then 8 more in nonfiction. And those of us who signed up to judge get our assignments, and so I got mine. And I just wanted to take a brief moment before I start reading to talk about the books and my impressions. Although I guess the first thing I'll just mention briefly at the start of this video is the long lists. These are my printouts that I printed out early in January when we voted on the long lists in fiction and nonfiction. I signed up to judge both, so I have both lists here. And in all honesty, this is, I think, my least popular year. I'm like least in with the in crowd this year. I voted for 20 books for both fiction and nonfiction, and 12 each got on to the long list. So I guess that's, a little over half at least, but it feels a little low to me. But, that's okay, because that's going to, I guess, propel me as I judge maybe to read some books that I wouldn't be considering. And that indeed is the case when it comes to the Octafinals list that the algorithm assigned me to, where absolutely none of the 6 books on the ballot are books that I voted for personally, but they do sound very intriguing. Although, as a preface, as many of us who were watching the official announcement of the Octafinals in real time for the premiere found out, I'll link to that video down below, but Robert said in the chat at that time, for those of us in nonfiction group H, to beware, because there was a 1,000-page book on that ballot, so you'd want to get reading quickly to get through that. And I thought to myself, I didn't even think about it much. I'm like, there's 16 groups overall. What's the likelihood that that's the group I will be assigned? And well, of course. Feeling very egocentric here as I say that, but it is the truth. I got assigned nonfiction group H for the Octafinals. And now I'll give my brief thoughts on all of these books. So first I'll start with a montage of the 6 covers. Okay, well, after all of that, I guess I should start with the 1,000-page book, which is Blood and Ruins by Richard Overy, which is in fact a sprawling history of World War II. And I guess I will go ahead for my preliminary thoughts and insert a clip of myself from 2 years ago when I had another 1,000-page book enter my BookTube Prize TBR. That book, in fact, was a biography of Sylvia Plath, which in fact turned out to be one of my favorite books of the year, the BookTube Prize. So, maybe that's a reminder to myself, not to judge a book by the exhaustiveness of its length. Although, to be fair, I guess these are going to be very different books. One is a very in-depth biography of a poet, and the other is about a much larger world event in and of itself. But I do think the premise intrigues me about how it might focus on the end of empires, because it was such a turning point, I think, World War II as a whole, in terms of global society, and how several of imperialness and colonial ventures either came to a halt or had a major change come to them. So, I mean, I'm excited to read this book, perhaps nervous and intimidated, but excited. And staying with World War II, the next book on the list for me is The Escape Artist, The Man Who Broke Out of Auschwitz to Warn the World by Jonathan Friedland, which in fact I didn't vote for because I didn't vote for any of the books on my ballot, but you might think I would because of my interest in Jewish history and culture. And I just tend to be a little reticent about going gung-ho for lots of Holocaust history, but this one is very popular. It's the only book I think I might have to buy because I don't think I'd be able to get it from the library in time, but we'll see. But anyway, so yeah, this is one of those sort of history meets biography books, I think, where we're tracking this Jewish prisoner who broke out of Auschwitz and then talking more broadly about Holocaust history. And the writer, I did a little research into his background. In fact, I think I remember reading about him for an unrelated play that he put on in London or some such, I mean, about Jewish culture. So that makes me more hopeful too. I'm just always a little nervous about Holocaust history, and probably a bias I should try to get over is, discussing it, outside of Jewish circles. But I hope this will be good. It'll live up to all the hype of me not being able to find it easily in the library. Next, to harken back to Sylvia Plath, I have two books to talk about that deal with poets and poetry. The first one is a memoir, also a poet, by Ada Calhoun, or it's about, I think, her and her father and the poet Frank O'Hara, so he is the poetry connection, and she and her father, I think, are writing a book about him asynchronously. So it'll be an interesting look at poetry and family, I hope. And then there is another book on poetry by Lucasta Miller, which is a biography of Keats called A Brief Life in 9 Poems and 1 Epitaph, which I think will be more literary criticism because I think she'll be analyzing his poetry more than writing a biography, maybe. Although I personally know Lucasta Miller, I mean personally as in having read one of her works, I know her as a biographer of literary figures. I have here The Bronte Myth by Lucasta Miller, which is a biography of the 3 Bronte sisters. And to be fair, the Bronte sisters intrigue me a lot more than Keats does, but I have good rapport now with Miller as an author, so hopefully that'll mean good things, so long as, I keep the bias out because she's the author I know the best. Another literary criticism book, I have 2 in the ballot, is Read Dangerously, The Subversive Power of Literature in Troubled Times by Azar Nafisi, which Nafisi was is the author of Reading Lolita in Tehran, so I think that was her impetus into talking about reading subversive books and authoritarian cultures, and I think she is broadening the topic to talk about other forms of literature, or other specific books at least as well, more broadly. So I think this will be very intriguing to see the intersection between reading so-called subversive books and talking about sort of rising up against authoritarian and oppressive institutions. So yeah, hoping for good things here as well. And then the final book I have to talk about is another biography called His Name is George Floyd, One Man's Life and the Struggle for Racial Justice by Robert Samuels and Tolu Orenipo. They are both Washington Post correspondents. And of course, the main interest in George Floyd has to do with the travesty of his death and what that says about state-sponsored violence and the need for reform, but I admit I'm most intrigued to read this book to get a sense of who George Floyd was as a person and not as a figurehead, to remember, you know, his eccentricities of the man he was, and to understand a bit about the life he was leading before it was so tragically cut short. So, yeah, I'm very excited for that one as well. And with that, I will officially zip my lips because one of the things about being a judge for the BookTube Prize is we don't want to influence each other with our thoughts as we are reading. So for the next 2 months, I will be reading these books, probably propping them up, you know, to tease them on my Am Reading videos, but not discussing them in any length until the Octafinals are concluded, and then I can share my ranking video. So stay tuned for that in a couple months. And that about covers it for me now. I will definitely be on this channel much sooner than a couple of months from now. There's still plenty more to get excited about on BookTube. In my next video, I think I will do my February page 112 tag because apparently putting a 1,000 page book about World War II onto the TBR isn't enough, and I have to add something else as well. So stay tuned for that. I hope all my fellow judges are equally as excited about their assignments if they were so fortunate to get them. And I look forward to your thoughts. Probably most of them will be coming again in 2 months rather than now because we are all quietly reading now. So huzzah! And enjoy. Hope we all enjoy, and it's a great BookTube Prize year. And thank you again, Robert, for everything you do. And on that note, thank you all for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time.